first things first, let's get down to that clarification of who you are wanting to become. So I want you to think back on what we did last week and think back to who that person is, what they would be doing, what accomplishments they would have, because we're going to start breaking that down into what habits would you need, who would you need to show up as today to become that person. So I want you to get very clear in your mind. Last week when I was thinking about it, who was that? What am I really focused on? Because we're going to start to talk about them and their life, if you will, in detail. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to then make sure that we're creating a good measuring stick of how to progress along the way. So we're going to create a system for you today that you can use week after week, and this is an evolving system, meaning as you progress, you will change the what's, if you will, that are in the system, but you will not change how you go about using the system. So let's dive down into business. So I want you to think about that identity and ask yourself of all the things that person, like the big long list of what I would do if I was that person. I want you to think about the closest goal that you had. Like maybe one of them was something was like 10 years from now, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, okay? Or maybe you had, remember I had it written down where it's like 3 months from now, this person would be doing 6 months from now, 12 months from now, that kind of thing. I want you to think of what one of the closer goals are and get that very clear in your mind, okay? And then what I want you to think next is thinking of this person. I'm gonna run you through some examples here, but thinking through this person, what are the habits that they would daily do today if I were that person? And what habits would I not do at all that I am currently doing if I were that person? Because what we have to do is we have to get your habits that you're doing on a daily basis and the choices that you're making on a daily basis in alignment with who you want to become. So we want to take an inventory today of, okay, so here's Alicia, and these are, this is what she's doing that doesn't align with that person. And these are the new habits that I would need to take on so that I could be in alignment with this person. So I want you to kind of get very clear in your mind of that because we're going to start to run through with some habits there. It's a really good, it gives us a target to be able to shoot for when we're determining what habits you need to have. Last week we found out who you want to be. This week we want to find out what it is that person would be doing and how they would go about doing it so that they keep out of the perfection mindset and don't get stuck in that rat race and stay in the progression mindset, that power of the progress mindset. So think about the way that those habits would fall, the must-dos and the stay away froms, okay? Just mentally hold it in there. You're going to work through this in detail on your own. And then the next thing I want you to think about is how you can align yourself with that person. Now, what I mean by that is, remember, a lot of at least the first part of what we're going to talk about today and quite a bit of what we talked about last week, some of those principles come from The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and then Atomic Habits, and that is actually by James Clear. So they are Charles Duhigg is a researcher. He did all this clinical research. Atomic Habits really kind of makes it easy, actionable steps that James Clear teaches from Charles's work. But one of the things that they really focus on in that is, if you were to become that person, then how would you need to align yourself with that? Because what we need to do is help you start to see yourself as, I am a person who. Remember last week, that's one of the ways we got a lot of clarity around who this person is you're becoming, is that I am a person who ... statement, right? So it's not, I am a person who has lost 35 pounds. That is an objective. That is a results goal. Instead, it's, I am a person who is active on any adventure that comes my way. Well, if that's who I am, then what daily activities do I need to do today to be in alignment with that? So think about that for a second when I take a drink. I feel like my tongue is sticking to the roof of my mouth. I also think maybe I need water. Not that actually has IV stuff in it. It was a little bit salty at the end. Okay, so think about that. Get that kind of in your head. And then what we're going to do next is kind of start to align with it. So actually, let me give you a really good example. This is one that James Clear gives in Atomic Habits. He talks about how the person who is quitting smoking, like maybe last night they had their last cigarette, they decided they're never going to smoke again, they put the cigarette aside, the next day they're at work and all their work buddies who are smokers say, hey, let's go for a smoke break, and the person says, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking, versus the person who's in that exact same scenario and says, oh, I don't smoke, no thank you. How the person who says, no, I don't smoke, no thank you, actually has a much greater chance at becoming truly a non-smoker. And the reason is because they have aligned their actions, their words, their choices based on who they want to become, not on the state that they're struggling with. So the person who says, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking, still sees themselves as a smoker who is struggling with that. The person who says, oh, well, no, I don't smoke, thank you though, sees themselves as not aligning with that struggle. And so the more you can see yourself as, I am the person who, ... right? Then the more you will easily make the choices in alignment with that. I know that seems kind of crazy, but it is exceptionally powerful. I actually did that just this weekend. So I'll always have different goals of my own, right? And we were up camping. And normally when we're camping, we have a bunch of people up and we have some drinks around the campfire, what have you. But because of the goals I have for some things that I have coming up on my schedule of some just adventures and stuff like that, I don't want to consume alcohol right now. Now, normally it would be my norm, like the smoker, right, to go out and smoke or go to the campfire and have a drink. But I just kept reminding myself, I don't want that because I am a person who, right? And I just filled in the blank. I'm an athlete and I train like an athlete so I can show up as an athlete. An athlete would not be drinking right now because it's not in congruence with my current goals. Now, 6 weeks from now, I very well may do that because I will be outside that goal. But that is what I mean by how much easier it was. I didn't struggle with the decision not to go have a drink around the campfire. That wasn't a problem because instead, I just was telling myself, well, that's not what you do right now. You're an athlete, so you show up like an athlete and you train like an athlete. And an athlete would not make the choice to drink that close to something that they were needing to partake in, event-wise. So that's what I mean by aligning yourself with that. So we want to make the list of habits that this person would have and things that they would not do that maybe you are currently doing, my example of the drinking, so that you can have right in front of you, black and white, where do I need to align myself with this person? Because the more congruent we can get your daily actions with this identity, the more and more you will actually be proving to yourself that this is truly who you are and truly who you are becoming. Okay, so you'll make that list. Let me give you just a quick example. I recently, and matter of fact, Toki, if she's still on here, her and myself and a couple other of my online clients and friends, we all went on an outdoor adventure weekend. We had a few days together. We went down to Zion National Park. These clients are all over the country, so the clients were outside of Utah, flew in, and we stayed together. We did the Angel's Landing hike. So if you're from Utah and you know what Angel's Landing is, you know that it's something that you really need to train for. It's considered one of the deadliest hikes in the United States because of, because you go through a chain system and there's literally sheer 1,200-foot drops off, shoulder width apart from you in places. But also, it is a really, really steep slope over a short amount of space, if you will. Like it's not that long of a hike, but you gain so much elevation. And so there's a lot of endurance, not just in your muscles, not just in your joints, but cardiovascularly as well. And so to give you an example of how I use this for myself, I was, in my mind, okay, I am a person who is going to show up as the leader of this hike, of this expedition with my clients. We're going to have a great time. I do not want to be behind everybody panting and because it's too taxing on my cardiovascular system. I hate doing cardiovascular stuff unless it's like just a good old bike ride. And so I was like, I don't want to show up as the coach and then gonna die of cardiovascular problems. So in training for this, we trained in a myriad ways, but one of the ways we did was train for that cardiovascular endurance. And because I absolutely hate cardio work, this was torturous for me, okay? So I would have to fight with myself every freaking day that I had to do the cardio, which was 5 days a week, a different type of cardio every other day. It kind of rotated. And I would have to fight with myself to make myself do it. I hated doing it. I was never excited about doing it. I will tell you, I always felt really good after, but I hated doing it. And every single time I would say to myself, I would picture the whole Angel's Landing hike. I would picture how I wanted to show up. I'm going to show up as a leader who is full of energy, who can lead an excited group, who has endurance and who can lead by example. And I'm going to show up as this person. In order to do that in 6 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, as it got closer and closer, I have to today show up as Alicia, who's willing to push herself in ways that she doesn't enjoy, so that she can go fully enjoy the things that she really likes, like outdoor adventures, especially outdoor adventures with a fun group of people like this, right? So every single day, I had to take that identity that I was becoming. I am a person who does this great outdoor adventure, has these great outdoor experiences, and align what I didn't want to do with what that person would be doing. I am going to get on here and train for VO2 max. I'm going to do the stair stepper with weight. I'm going to do the Jacob's ladder, and I'm not going to skip a day, because if I want to show up as that person at the time I have allotted, then I need to also show up today as with the habits that that person would have. So another thing, an example of things that I would not do, again, goes back to drinking. So if I would normally want a drink on the weekend, my calories, I needed all the calories coming into my body to give me energy and endurance, because we were really pushing our bodies pretty hard in those training sessions, getting ready for Angel's Landing. And so I needed to know that everything I was taking in calorically was full of nutrition. And alcohol doesn't have any nutrition. It's actually anti-nutrition. It's a toxin, and so it really messes with the signal you're sending to your body. And when you're really pushing your body, you don't want your body to have to fight something you put in it. You want it to be able to be nourished by everything you put in it. And so I had to tell myself, I'm training like an athlete right now, and an athlete right now would not have this drink. An athlete will celebrate when it's done, but they would not have an arbitrary drink just this weekend. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to show up as an athlete, and I'm going to make sure everything that goes in my mouth is nourishing my body for the things that I want to accomplish for myself as this person. Today, that person 6 weeks from now, when they're on this Angel's Landing hike and having this great time with these people, would have to show up today this way, saying, no, I don't need a drink, and then, go have something that would nourish their body. So that's what I mean by this actually gives us a great filter to filter all of our choices through. When we have a really solid picture of who we are becoming and what we're working to be able to stand up and say, this is who I am, I own this, and then daily be able to say, are the habits I'm doing today in alignment with that thing? So I want you to think over the closest and maybe second closest part of the goal that person would have that you wrote down from last week, And I want you to start thinking through, what habits would they have that I need to either continue with or incorporate because I don't already have? And what things would I need to set aside because they are not congruent with the person I'm becoming? The person who I'm becoming would not do that, or would do it to a lesser degree. For example, it's not that I am never going to have a drink, it's just that right now, because I'm training for something special, I'm not going to. I know I need to nourish my body like the athlete I want to show up, so I'm going to utilize all the food that goes into my body, all the calories that go into my body as a nourishing substance. So that's the first thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is then ask yourself, okay, of this big thing, so let's break this down a little bit. In that goal, matter of fact, let me give you an example. I'm going to go way, way back, okay? I'm going to go way back. This would be like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. Back when I was running a sales and marketing team for, it was actually a health and fitness company, and I was running their sales and marketing team, health and wellness company, excuse me, and was running their sales and marketing nationwide team for them. And this was back when I was overweight. I decided, this was when I was like, okay, I have to change something. I no longer recognize myself. I literally don't know who that is in the mirror. That is not the Alicia that I know that I am and that I always have been up until this point. And so I wanted to start making those changes. And we had an upcoming annual conference that was coming up. And on that annual conference, I'm going to see all of these people that I'm a leader over, and some of them that are my superiors. We're going to come together. We're this online team that we hear each other on the daily, but we don't get to see each other but once a year maybe. And so we have this really big annual event, and I was really excited to go to it. But the year before when we went, all the pictures of all of us together, I felt really embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, that doesn't even look like you. Like, I couldn't figure out who I was in the picture till I looked close, right? And I did not want to feel that way again. I did not want to be the person who was embarrassed to stand up in front of the crowd and lead the group. I felt total confidence doing that behind the phone, but realized how much I had let myself go because I've been so focused on business and on my kids for so long that I hadn't been taking care of myself. And I felt like I wasn't representing myself. Like, I truly wasn't showing up as me to all these people who looked up to me. And so I didn't want to feel like that again. I didn't want to get on the plane and have the person think, oh my gosh, I hope that person's not sitting next to me because it's going to make it really tight. I didn't want to stand up in front of the group and feel embarrassed, like, is my shirt pulling or my pants making a roll? Like, I didn't want any of that. I wanted to stand up in front of that group as the leader that I am and representing myself for who I truly knew I was. And so I had to ask myself, for me, next year at conference, to have, at convention, to have a picture taken with the group, and for me to feel proud of that, for me to feel like I'm truly representing myself in that picture and truly representing a health and fitness company, a health and wellness company. What do I need to do today to show up as that woman in the picture? What do I need to change to show up and honor that woman today so that I can be her, in a few months from now? And so then I had to go, well, I would need to eat healthy. I would need to add some activity. I would need to make sure I was carving consistent time for activity. I would need to find some recipes. And those are the big chunks of things, right? Those are the big things that people need to do. But what happens is that big chunk, like, I need to eat more healthy. Well, that is a very large topic, right? That is one thing is actually a lot of to-dos, right? I need to start working out. Well, that's a cascade of, well, what kind of workouts would be best? And can I work out at home? And if I worked out at home, what equipment would I need? Should I get a gym membership? If I went to a gym, would I even know what to do? Do I need a trainer? Should I buy a program? Like, all those things are running through my mind, right? So now these top 3 things of, eat healthy, be more active, make time for consistent activity and healthy eating, those 3 things are now literally 20 to 30 small things that feel overwhelming. But all of those need to be part of me becoming the woman who could stand in that picture and feel confident and comfortable in my own skin again. So what we need to do is understand the value of taking that big thing, like I need to decide, what my workouts would look like. What would that even look like? How much should I be doing? What kind should I be doing? And we need to break that down into little pieces. You need to take the nutrition aspect and say, okay, well, I need to eat more healthy. Well, what does that even look like? How many calories should I be eating? Do I care about calories? Should I be doing keto? Should I be, all those things we need to now sort through. We need to decide, how would I handle breakfast because school is starting and gosh, that might be a little hard to get the kids out the door and we have a healthy breakfast. Well, now that I think about it, what would I take for lunch? Because we go out for lunch every day and I don't know what I would change about that. And how would I have time to make lunches? All those things are very important to be able to figure out. All of them are a part of becoming that person, right? But you cannot try to take on all of those at once because that will create overwhelm and it will create that sabotage cycle that we talked about last week where you actually are setting yourself up for it needs to be perfect or it doesn't matter. So what we need to do in honor of understanding the power of progress and understanding how perfection is definitely the killer of consistency, right? We need to ask ourselves from that list of things, okay, if I want to become Alicia who can walk into the airplane and know that I don't need to worry about people thinking that I'm going to be hogging half their seat too, that I can feel really good about standing next to the person in that picture and that I'm representing myself fully for who I am inside and outside to this group of people that I train and manage. If I want to do that, then of this huge list that I now have going on of how I'm going to handle breakfast and what I'm going to do about lunches and oh my gosh, do I have to cook 2 dinners every day and how am I going to handle this? I look at that list that I've jotted down and I pick the one thing that I know will move the needle forward and is doable. So one of the things we do, and especially just depending on your neurotypes, this can be even more with one neurotype or another. One of the things we do is we're like, oh, I know, I'm going to create the perfect plan. So for the next week and a half, I'm going to gather recipes and I'm going to write them all down and I'm going to put them in a little binder. I'm going to have them all set up. And that way, in 2 weeks from now, I can get started. Well, what happens is, while that information is helpful, it actually is only one little piece of the pie. And if you think that gathering all that and getting it in the binder means you now have a perfect plan, when you suddenly realize you don't have breakfast ready or there's no way to do lunch every day or all those other things, pretty soon you feel overwhelmed. You feel like you can't handle it. What's the point? Dinners don't matter if you can't do breakfast and lunch. It all falls apart and you are back to the yo-yo cycle again, right? Usually that's about 3 to 4 weeks in general, okay? So what we need to do instead is look at the list, understand that these are things that we will do over time because we're progressing, because we are going to get more and more refined at becoming this person. Pretty soon, the habits you have listed on that paper are going to be your habits, are going to feel like your second skin. It's not going to be hard for you to do anymore because every day you're doing a little bit more and progressing a little bit closer to that person and to master that habit. And so you can then take on another thing, another point that's on that list. But first, we must decide what on that list of all the things that could be done makes most sense to start with. Now, I'll give you an idea of how to identify this. And we can do some question and answers in the group and stuff as well. But I want you to have some ideas of how to identify this. Number one, it needs to be something that is a needle mover, okay? So it can't be so simple that you're never going to get any momentum off of it, that you're never going to start seeing yourself closer and closer to the person that you're working on becoming, okay? So it does need to be a needle mover, but it also needs to be something that you already have some ability to do, okay? So it can't be something that you've never accomplished before. So, for example, if you never in your life have ever logged meals before, this one first thing can't be I'm going to log all my meals, because on top of logging your meals, guess what you also have to know? What food am I going to eat? What recipes do I have? How do I know whether it's healthy? So logging your meals becomes like a bunch of, other underling things, if you will, to log your meal. So maybe it's I am just going to log my food as I eat it for the next 2 weeks, and I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to eat like I always eat, so that I can get used to logging, and so I can actually have some information on what I have truly been eating like. Now that's an actual really good, useful first step. 1, you're creating the habit of logging food. 2, you'll become very aware of what you're actually eating, which makes it much easier to dial in what you need to be doing to lose body fat, if that's a goal, or to gain muscle mass, if that's your goal. So knowing what you actually have been doing and not just guessing and thinking, oh, I probably eat about this much, is very beneficial. So that is actually a needle mover. But if you're saying to yourself, I'm going to, eat healthy and I'm going to log my foods, I'm going to grab that old diet I did before, it seemed to have worked, I know some of the meals, so it's going to be pretty simple, and my goal is I'm going to log all that food. Well, that is a pretty big jump. That's actually about 3 steps that you're trying to tie into one thing, and that will become overwhelming. So maybe it is, I'm going to go back to that last meal plan that I had that worked really well, that I did like the food. I'm going to think through why I fell off the plan and use what Alicia talked about last week about how to handle triggers and how to identify them, how to get myself out of that cycle before it starts, so that I don't end up down that road again. But I'm going to go back to that meal plan, and I'm going to look it over and determine this week what I'd like to do out of it. And I'm going to maybe that would be your one needle mover, right? Something that is doable, that you have done in the past, but you're stretching yourself a little bit more, okay? And I want you to find the one thing on that list. Now, one of the things that we're going to need, oh guys, sorry, my internet connection is saying that it's going a little haywire, so hopefully we're not having a repeat of last week. If so, I'll just re-record it and put it up for you guys again, but it's saying my internet's going a little haywire, so hopefully you guys are still here with me. But so then what we're going to do from there is we're going to say, okay, this is the one goal that I'm going to do. The rest of this we're going to set aside. We're going to add it in later, but first I'm going to master this one. And we're going to use a technique. This is our second technique that helps us keep our mind focused on the power of progression and keep us away from the perfectionist tendencies, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a way for you to create small daily wins that give you a vote in favor for the person you're becoming. So every time I did my workout, as I was trying to become the person who would stand in front of the group and feel like I was truly representing myself physically, mentally, and emotionally in front of the group, every time I went and did my workout, I was giving myself one more vote. Last weekend when I was like, oh, I don't need to have a drink around the campfire because that's not in alignment with the athlete that I am. I have an event coming up and I want to make sure I'm ready for it, and the way that I want to show up, then that was another vote in the bank of Alicia is an athlete and she trains like an athlete. She nourishes herself like an athlete, okay? So you want to pick something that can give you a small daily win, because that small daily win is what will help you see the progression towards who you are becoming and start to identify with the person, not just as the person that you have on the piece of paper, not just as the person on your screensaver from your anniversary trip when you felt marvelous and strong and happy and confident in your body, but as that is who I am, that is how I show up, this is me again, right? But that takes constantly adding a small daily win vote for that identity in your identity bank. So with that small daily win, what we're going to do is this week, once you have created your list of, okay, the person I'm working to become is this in the next 3 months or 6 months, whatever that goal length is that you have identified. These are the habits that the person would do. These are the things that I need to quit doing because they're not in alignment. This is the one thing that I am going to begin doing or not doing. I'm going to make it my habit not to eat out 5 days a week, right? I'm going to make it a habit not to have alcohol this week, or what have you. Whatever that either is or is not, you've identified it. Then what we want to do is we want to make a goal that is achievable and moves you along and pulls you to require a little bit more of yourself every single week. So every single week, day after day, you're getting a little bit closer incrementally to who that person is, but also setting a goal that allows you to have achievement and success every week as well. So I learned this technique clear back when I was had the former career that I was just telling you about, and I used to train my sales team leaders with this, and then we would train our teams based on this in our goal setting. But it's actually creating a minimum and a stretch goal, and the book that I got this from is called Bringing Out the Best in Others, so you can go check that out. But it walks you through how to help somebody set a minimum goal and a stretch goal. Now, the genius of this is this. The goal that you're going to pick that's minimum, even if you only reached your minimum goal, that goal is actually going to get you further down the road. Okay, so it still is moving the needle. You're still closer to achieving that person that you're becoming. But when you finish, or when you accomplish the minimum goal, than you were yesterday or last week or a month ago. Okay, so minimum goal is always still moving you forward towards who you want to become, and your stretch goal is really going to cause you to have to work for that. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, I am back in Alicia 15 years ago. I actually run my business from home, so we'll have to make up the fact that I'm taking lunches to work. But let's say I had identified, look, here's the thing. I know I need to have a healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but school's getting started right now, and so breakfast is going to be really hard for me to be consistent with. And dinner means I'm going to have to deal with my family. So right now, if I was to pick one thing in the healthy eating habit that I'm going to stick with, I'm going to pick my lunches, because it's the thing I have the most control over and will be the easiest. Now, it's still going to take some diligence. I'm still going to have to do some planning, some shopping, some prepping, right? So I still have to work for this, but it is going to make a difference, because now I'm going to start to get used to the healthy eating habits again. But it is doable. I'm not setting myself up for a failure tomorrow when it's the first day of school and everybody's crazy and I don't have time to get me a healthy breakfast, okay? So the minimum goal might be, okay, I've not taken lunches to work for a long, long time. So what I want to do is say my minimum goal is, I know if I just walk through the steps that Alicia has taught me, I ask myself, what would the person do who wants to do X, Y, and Z? I am a person who X, Y, and Z. What would I do today if I am that person? If I did that consistently, I know at a bare minimum, I could take 3 lunches to work this week. So that would be your minimum goal. My minimum goal is I'm taking 3 of my lunches from home to work and eating healthy, okay? So no matter what, you have to make sure you reach that minimum goal. And if it comes to Friday and you've only done it twice, no matter what, you've got to take it Friday, right? You better get up Thursday night, get that lunch ready so you can take it Friday. The good thing about this is it also gives an accounting for if something does happen. What if suddenly your daughter reminds you that, oh my gosh, my teacher gave us this last minute slip that I have stuff I need to take to school tomorrow, and now the time you would have been making your lunch the night before, you have to run down to the store and grab those extra supplies. That is a legitimate reason. It's not an excuse. It is a legitimate reason, something you couldn't control. And so that's okay. That's why we give ourselves a minimum goal, right? So there's one of your get out of jail free cards. That's one of the 2 that you could miss in a 5-day work week if you're going to take 3 lunches, right? So the next thing is you're going to ask yourself stretch goal. Now, the stretch goal, the way that you determine how to set a stretch goal is, first you need to ask yourself, is that actually something I could do? And is it something that I am capable of doing Yet it would require me to be very focused, on point, and diligent and not miss a beat. So the minimum goal is something I could do if I was focused, if I was paying attention, if my intentions, I followed through with my intentions, I didn't make excuses, I could absolutely do the minimum goal. There's no reason not to get the minimum goal. If I don't get the minimum goal, it's because I really don't care. I'm just not here. I'm not putting my 2 feet forward. Is that a saying? No, I think I just made up my own saying. I'm not actually really putting myself to get this done. I'm just going with the flow and oh gosh, I forgot. Okay, so your minimum goal is something very doable, but you do have to pay attention. You do have to follow your intentions that you set for yourself. You do have to follow through. Your stretch goal is something that you're capable of, but would mean that you were on point, hardcore. Nothing went out of you. Never made excuses about why you weren't getting up making your lunch. You never made excuses about why you weren't running to the store to pick up your food that you needed for the next day. You were just no excuse, no BS. I'm all about this thing, okay? It's doable, but you literally can't miss a beat to reach it, okay? So that stretch goal in this case might be, I'm going to take my lunch 5 days a week. I know I can do it. I mean, I can make it lunch, right? It's not something I'm not capable of. I can plan ahead and buy groceries, not something I'm not capable of. I can make sure that I remember to take it in the morning, even if it's like setting an alarm on my phone or putting a post-it note on the garage door. When I go out, I open the garage door, I see it before I get in the car. I run back in and grab my lunch, which I made the night before. All those things, right? I am completely capable of doing these. None of these are things that I don't know how to do or could not do. But it means that I'm going to have to make sure I never give excuses to not go shopping. I never sit down and watch TV and get too tired to get up and make my lunch. I never, make the excuse of, oh gosh, I'm running behind anyways. We went out to get, these extra supplies. I could get home and make my lunch in time and still be able to get in bed on time. But, we are out and it's the last week of summer, so let's go have ice cream. Like, you would not have wiggle room for those kinds of excuses and mind games we play with ourselves, okay? So that would be your stretch goal. So in this scenario, my minimum goal would be, I'm going to just focus on lunch this week because it's the simplest. It's not breakfast with the kids, it's not dinner with the family, but it's something I can fully control, and I know I can get a small daily win vote on a daily basis to becoming this person. This is progress, it is not perfection, okay? And it will actually infect the rest of your goals because you're gonna be like, oh, look, I did that, I can do more, and you'll start doing these same things with the rest of the goals or the rest of the habits on your list, moving you forward to your goal. But the minimum goal would be, okay, I know I could do 3. The maximum would be, if I really worked hard, I could do 5. At the end of the week, as long as you showed up and followed through with what you're saying that you want out of your life for yourself, you will have moved yourself forward. Even if it was only 3 days, that 3 days is way more than what you were doing before, and you will have started to align yourself with the person you're becoming. And you guys, this is the biggest and most important part, is that you will have aligned yourself with those little votes day after day with the person you're becoming. That is the point that becomes the snowball, that becomes the self-replicating desire to do more. As you see yourself becoming more and more in alignment with that person, and your habits start to become more and more in alignment with who you know you want to be, you will start to take on that identity fully, and no longer will the temptation to not take lunch and just have lunch out every day be even there, because that no longer is who you are. You will have started to become that identity. Okay, so hopefully that is clear. So your action step this week is number 1. Now that we have clarity on who you want to become, we need to identify what you need to do so that you are in alignment with your daily actions with that person. Number 2, once you have got clarity around the habits they would have or would not have, break them down into small pieces of what that would look like. Like, okay, well, if I'm saying I want to eat healthy, that would mean breakfast, and breakfast would mean I would need to do these things, and lunch would mean I need to do things, and dinner would mean this, and I need to figure out my calories, and break it down into all the small pieces. And then pick which one of those small pieces this week is going to be your minimum and stretch goal. You're going to write that down, and then you're going to share it with the group, all right? So I want you to Identify what your one habit is that's going to get you in alignment with your small daily win, check mark, vote for who you're becoming, your minimum goal and your stretch goal, and share that in the group.